Ever wonder why some German war films get banned while Hollywood glorifies violence? German filmmakers didn't just document their darkest chapter. They detonated cultural bombs that still explode decades later. From neo-Nazi riots to diplomatic incidents, these 15 films redefined how we talk about history's most devastating conflict. Number 15. Stalingrad, 1993. Stalingrad ripped the hero complex right out of war movies and stomped it into frozen Russian mud. Director Joseph Vilsmeyer's brutal masterpiece follows a platoon of German soldiers from sun-drenched Italy to the meat grinder of the Eastern Front, where they discover exactly what hell looks like when it freezes over. No glory, no patriotism, just frostbitten limbs and hollow-eyed men eating soup made from wallpaper paste. What sparked outrage wasn't the violence, it was showing German soldiers as victims. Countries that suffered under Nazi occupation accused the film of historical revisionism, claiming it whitewashed German war crimes while emphasizing Wehrmacht suffering. The Russian government refused to cooperate during production, forcing filmmakers to shoot in freezing conditions in Czechoslovakia instead. Critics weren't prepared for the film's unflinching portrayal of war's senseless brutality. Roger Ebert called it one of the most uncompromising war films ever made, while German newspapers debated whether depicting soldiers as victims betrayed Holocaust victims. The film cost 20 million Deutsche Marks, enormous for German cinema at the time, but earned back double worldwide. The most disturbing scene shows a field hospital where doctors amputate limbs with carpenter's saws, throwing severed legs into a pile outside that grows throughout the sequence. No special effects. Those were actual amputees hired as extras. As one Wehrmacht veteran told Der Spiegel, "This isn't a movie. This is what happened to us." Number 14. Downfall, 2004. Downfall made Hitler human, and that terrified everyone. Oliver Hirschspiegel's claustrophobic bunker drama, starring Bruno Ganz, shows Hitler's final days with unprecedented intimacy. His trembling hands, his delusional military strategies, his oddly tender moments with his dog. When it premiered at Berlin, 8 viewers walked out. Not because it was boring, because seeing Hitler as a person rather than a monster was too uncomfortable. The film ignited fierce debate about whether humanizing Hitler diminishes Holocaust victims' suffering. Jewish groups in France and Poland protested screenings, while German critics questioned if the country was ready to portray Hitler as anything but pure evil. Wim Wenders famously condemned it as a film that Hitler himself would have loved. Behind the scenes, actor Bruno Ganz spent months studying Hitler's mannerisms, voice recordings, and even consulted doctors about Hitler's Parkinson's symptoms. He isolated himself for 4 months, telling Der Spiegel, "I was infected by his madness." The famous bunker rant, seen, later endlessly parodied online, took 16 takes of sustained rage that left Ganz physically ill. Despite costing only $13.5 million, Downfall earned over $92 million worldwide and received an Oscar nomination. Its greatest controversy emerged years later when the bunker scene became an internet meme, with subtitles showing Hitler ranting about everything from Xbox to football losses. Holocaust survivors condemned the trend as trivializing genocide, while the film's producers tried unsuccessfully to remove the parodies from YouTube. Number 13. Das Boot, 1981. Das Boot trapped audiences inside a German U-boat and made them root for Nazi submariners to survive, a psychological trick that shocked American audiences. Wolfgang Petersen's claustrophobic masterpiece follows a German submarine crew as they hunt Allied ships, endure depth-charge attacks, and slowly lose their sanity in the cramped, sweaty confines of their underwater coffin. The film was immediately accused of propaganda. British war veterans organized protests outside London theaters, calling it an insult to sailors who died fighting fascism. The controversy intensified when President Reagan screened it at the White House and called it a brilliant anti-war statement, prompting veterans groups to question his patriotism. Peterson's commitment to authenticity bordered on insanity. The production built a full-scale submarine interior on a soundstage, complete with working periscopes and torpedo tubes. The attention to detail was so precise that actual Navy submariners visited the set and praised its authenticity. The cast wasn't allowed to go outdoors during the 40-day shoot to maintain their pallid appearance, and Peterson deliberately engineered conflict between actors to create genuine tension. When released in Germany, older audiences wept openly. They had lost husbands, sons, and brothers in submarine warfare. With 40,000 German submariners deployed during the war, only 10,000 returned alive. The original German cut ran 149 minutes, while the international version was shortened to 98 minutes. Years later, Peterson released a 209-minute director's cut that cost nearly as much to restore as the original film's entire budget of 32 million Deutsche Marks. Number 12, The Bridge, 1959. The Bridge gut-punched post-war Germany by showing Hitler's youngest victims, teenage boys sent to die in the final days of a lost war. Director Bernhard Wickey's devastating film follows 7 16-year-old schoolboys drafted in April 1945 and assigned to defend a meaningless bridge in their hometown. Believing in final victory and eager to prove themselves, they refuse to abandon their post even as seasoned soldiers retreat. What makes this film so shocking is that it's based on true events. In the real incident, all but one boy died defending the bridge, which the German army blew up anyway just hours later. When the film premiered, the mother of one of the actual boys collapsed during the screening. Critics called it the German Saving Private Ryan, but with children instead of men. The film faced backlash from both sides. Germans uncomfortable confronting their complicity in sending children to die, and Allied countries accusing it of portraying Germans as victims rather than aggressors. French distributors initially refused to screen it, calling it Nazi apologia, disguised as anti-war sentiment. Wickey shot in stark black and white, using actual ruins, and destroyed German towns as backdrops. Many scenes used local villagers who had experienced the war firsthand as extras. The film's most disturbing moment comes when one boy shoots an American soldier, then breaks down in tears upon discovering a photo of the man's family. The Bridge won the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film and remains required viewing in German schools, a disturbing reminder of how totalitarianism consumes the young first. Number 11. Europa Europa, 1990. Europa Europa follows a Jewish boy who survives the Holocaust by joining the Hitler Youth, a premise so controversial that Germany refused to submit it for Oscar consideration. Based on the unbelievable true story of Solomon Perel, Agnieszka Holland's film chronicles how a German Jewish teenager evaded death by assuming multiple identities, eventually becoming celebrated as an ethnic German poster child by the Nazis. The film's most outrageous scenes actually happened. The real Perel had to hide his circumcision for years, binding himself painfully before showers and desperately avoiding medical examinations. In one incredible sequence, a Hitler Youth leader examines his skull with calipers and declares him a textbook Aryan specimen. German film authorities snubbed the film for Oscar consideration, claiming it was too Polish despite its German funding, setting, and language. Critics suspected the real reason was Germany's discomfort with the film's darkly comic tone, and suggestions that many good Germans willfully ignored obvious contradictions in Nazi ideology. The French ended up submitting it instead, leading to a bitter public dispute between director Holland and the German Film Board. When Solomon Perel attended the premiere at age 65, audience members accused him of lying about his experiences until he showed documentation proving every outlandish event in the film actually occurred. The movie won the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film and became one of the highest-grossing foreign-language films in American history, earning over $5.6 million in the U.S. market alone, unprecedented for a German-language Holocaust film. Number 10. Generation War, 2013. Generation War dropped a cultural bomb that's still exploding. This three-part television miniseries follows 5 German friends from 1941 through the war's end, showing how ordinary young people became accomplices to atrocity. When it aired, Polish viewers burned German flags outside TV stations, while Jewish groups accused it of historical revisionism. The series' most controversial aspect was its portrayal of Wehrmacht soldiers as unwitting participants rather than ideological Nazis. 2 main characters express doubts about Hitler, yet continue following orders that enable the Holocaust. German critics praised this nuanced approach, while international reviewers condemned it as historical whitewashing on an epic scale. The production stirred diplomatic tensions between Germany and Poland over scenes depicting Polish resistance fighters as anti-Semitic. The Polish ambassador to Germany formally protested, calling it falsification of history, while the German government defended artistic freedom. In America, the New Yorker's David Denby called it the German Band of Brothers, while Holocaust scholars condemned it for suggesting Germans were victims of Nazism rather than its enablers. With a budget of $14 million, it was the most expensive German television production ever made. The series used 500 speaking parts and thousands of extras, many of whom were actual Eastern Europeans who had lived under Nazi occupation, creating tense moments on set when filming violent scenes. Despite, or because of, the controversy, over 7 million Germans watched each episode, sparking the country's largest public discussion about war guilt since the 1980s Holocaust miniseries. Schools across Germany now use it in history classes, despite ongoing protests from Polish and Jewish organizations. Number 9. The Murderers Are Among Us, 1946. The Murderers Are Among Us was the first German film made after Hitler's defeat, shot in the literal rubble of Berlin while bodies were still being recovered. Director Wolfgang Staudt had to get permission from all 4 occupying powers, with the Soviets ultimately producing it in their sector. The film follows a surgeon-turned-alcoholic, haunted by his military service, who discovers his former captain, responsible for massacring Polish civilians, has become a successful businessman. The film nearly sparked riots at its premiere. Audiences were stunned to see Berlin's destruction on screen while sitting in partially collapsed theaters. American occupation authorities tried blocking its release, fearing the vigilante justice portrayed would inspire Germans to hunt down former Nazis. The original ending, where the protagonist kills his former captain, was changed at Soviet insistence to show him being legally arrested instead. The production itself was nightmarish. There was no functioning film industry, so cameras and equipment were salvaged from bombed buildings. The crew worked without electricity or running water, developing film by hand. Actress Hildegard Knef later recalled eating raw potatoes between takes to stay alive during shooting. The film's most shocking scene shows the execution of Polish civilians on Christmas Eve 1942, based on actual war crimes documented at Nuremberg. When it screened internationally, Western critics dismissed it as Soviet propaganda, while Eastern Bloc countries embraced it as the definitive statement on German guilt. Today, film historians consider it the founding document of Trümmer film, rubble film, a brief but influential post-war German genre that confronted national guilt through noir-like aesthetics. Number 8. Come and See, 1985. Wait, why is a Soviet film on this list of German movies? Because Come and See features the most disturbing portrayal of German atrocities ever filmed, and German theaters refused to show it for decades. Elem Klimov's nightmare vision follows a teenage Belarusian boy who witnesses SS troops commit unspeakable crimes against his village. The film was banned in West Germany until 1987 and faced censorship attempts across Europe for its unflinching depiction of Nazi barbarism. German critics called it manipulative Soviet propaganda, until historians confirmed the film accurately portrayed documented SS massacres in Belarus, where over 628 villages were destroyed and their inhabitants murdered. The controversies only intensified after German reunification, when neo-Nazi groups vandalized theaters screening the restored version in 1992. Shot with surreal intensity and raw realism, the film captures war's madness without glorification. Its unflinching brutality, haunting visuals, and transformative lead performance make it one of the most devastating anti-war films ever made. Come and See doesn't just show war, it makes you feel its horror in your bones long after it ends. The film's most infamous sequence shows a village church packed with civilians being burned alive by laughing SS troops, a scene based on actual incidents documented at Nuremberg. Director Klimov fought Soviet censors who wanted to tone down the violence, insisting, "The truth was far worse than what I showed." Lead actor Alexei Kravchenko was only 14 during filming. His hair actually turned gray from stress during the 9-month shoot, and doctors monitored him for psychological damage. German audiences finally embraced the film in the 2000s, with critics acknowledging it as the most honest portrayal of what our grandfathers did in the East. Number 7. The Tin Drum, 1979. The Tin Drum won Germany its first Palme d'Or at Cannes and then got banned in multiple countries for alleged child exploitation. Volker Schlöndorff's adaptation of Günter Grass's surrealist novel follows Oscar, a boy who refuses to grow physically after age 3 in protest against the adult world of Nazism. The film's magical realism, including Oscar's glass-shattering scream and prescient predictions, creates an allegorical journey through Germany's darkest period. The controversy exploded around scenes featuring then 12-year-old actor David Bennett, particularly one suggesting sexual activity between Oscar and an adult character. In 1997, an Oklahoma judge ruled the film contained child pornography, leading to police confiscating copies from libraries and rental stores. Similar bans followed in other American states and Canadian provinces. Production was plagued with problems beyond the controversial content. The mechanical dolls used for infant Oscar repeatedly malfunctioned. Actor David Bennett, who had a growth hormone condition that made him appear younger than his age, suffered physical injuries from repeatedly falling during stunts. And Günter Grass himself frequently visited the set, arguing with Schlöndorff over interpretations of his novel. Despite, or because of, these controversies, the film won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film and grossed over $30 million worldwide. German critics initially condemned it as trivializing Nazism through fantasy, while international audiences embraced its unique approach to processing national guilt. The film remains unavailable in its complete form in several countries, with censored versions removing up to 11 minutes of content. Number 6. Triumph of the Will, 1935. Triumph of the Will isn't just Nazi propaganda. It's the most dangerous documentary ever made, still banned in Germany today. Leni Riefenstahl's film documenting the 1934 Nuremberg Rally revolutionized cinematography, with techniques still used in everything from Star Wars to sports coverage. The problem? It was commissioned by Hitler himself to deify Nazi leadership and ideology. The film's continued power to influence viewers made it a global pariah. Germany banned public screenings in 1945, a prohibition that continues today. It can only be shown in educational contexts with scholarly introduction. Israel banned it outright, while countries like France and Britain restricted it to academic settings. In America, protests erupted when film schools attempted to teach it as technique separate from content. Riefenstahl's innovations included aerial photography, tracking shots, and telephoto lenses that created the illusion of Hitler emerging from clouds like a god. She employed 30 cameras and 120 technicians, some operating from specially designed elevators and tracks. The entire rally was actually staged for the film rather than the other way around, with Hitler repeatedly re-entering venues for better camera angles. After the war, Riefenstahl insisted she was merely documenting events without political intent, a claim demolished by production records showing her close collaboration with Nazi leadership. She spent decades fighting lawsuits from concentration camp survivors who had been forced to work on her films. Despite being arguably the most influential female director in history, Riefenstahl died in 2003 at age 101 as a pariah, never having escaped the shadow of this technically brilliant but morally reprehensible masterpiece. Number 5. Jud Süss, 1940. Jud Süss remains the most effective hate film ever created, personally commissioned by Goebbels as entertainment propaganda and mandatory viewing for SS units before executing Jewish civilians. Director Veit Harlan's anti-Semitic period drama portrays a Jewish financial advisor who manipulates his way into power, exploits Germans, and sexually preys on Christian women, all vicious stereotypes presented as historical fact. The film's impact was immediately deadly. Screenings in occupied territories were followed by riots targeting Jewish neighborhoods. In Berlin, audience members attacked Jewish pedestrians after leaving theaters. After the war, the film became Exhibit A at the Nuremberg trials, with prosecutors arguing it directly incited genocide. The production history is equally disturbing. Goebbels forced renowned actor Ferdinand Marion to play the title role despite his objections, threatening his half-Jewish wife with deportation. Jewish prisoners from concentration camps were used as extras. Harlan later claimed he feared for his life if he refused the assignment, though evidence suggests he embraced the project enthusiastically. After Germany's defeat, Allied authorities banned the film worldwide. Harlan was tried twice for crimes against humanity, the only filmmaker so charged, but was acquitted after claiming artistic compulsion. The film remains prohibited from public screening in Germany except in academic contexts with scholarly introduction. When a digitally restored version was created in 2008 for historical preservation, numerous film archives refused to house it. The British Film Institute keeps their copy in a high-security vault alongside biological hazards, with historian access requiring government clearance. Number 4. Cross of Iron, 1977. Cross of Iron made audiences cheer for a German sergeant fighting Russians, a concept so controversial that American distributors initially refused to release it. Sam Peckinpah's gritty war film follows Sergeant Steiner, a decorated but disillusioned Wehrmacht soldier battling both the advancing Soviet army and his own glory-seeking Prussian officers on the Eastern Front in 1943. The film sparked walkouts at its Berlin premiere, with German audiences uncomfortable seeing their soldiers portrayed sympathetically, while Americans protested a movie that humanized the enemy. Soviet officials condemned it as fascist revisionism, while Israeli critics called it moral relativism at its worst. The controversy deepened when Orson Welles declared it the greatest war film ever made. Production was chaotic, even by Peckinpah standards. The notoriously difficult director was drinking heavily and using cocaine during filming in Yugoslavia. He frequently fought with producers and actors, once firing a prop machine gun over crew members' heads when they questioned his methods. Star James Coburn recalled, "Sam was out of control, brilliant, but dangerous." The film's most shocking sequence shows German child soldiers being slaughtered by Soviet troops, while Steiner watches helplessly. A deliberate parallel to Vietnam imagery meant to challenge audience sympathies. Despite costing $6 million, the film flopped in America, earning just $700,000. European audiences were more receptive, making it profitable internationally. Critics remained divided, with some calling it an anti-war masterpiece and others accusing it of sanitizing German war crimes by focusing exclusively on frontline soldiers rather than Holocaust perpetrators. Number 3. Valkyrie, 2008. Valkyrie put Tom Cruise in a Nazi uniform, and German audiences their minds. This Hollywood thriller about the 1944 plot to assassinate Hitler sparked unprecedented controversy years before filming began. The German government initially refused to allow shooting at historic locations, citing Cruise's Scientology affiliation, which Germany classifies as an exploitative business rather than a religion. The film faced protests from both sides, Holocaust groups concerned about portraying any Nazis positively, and German veterans organizations angered by an American playing national hero, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg. Conservative politicians labeled it historical vandalism, while Stauffenberg's own son called Cruise too short and not Germanic enough to play his father. Production became a diplomatic incident when Germany's defense ministry banned filming at military sites, citing Cruise's totalitarian religious beliefs, a decision later reversed after pressure from the U.S. State Department. The controversy intensified when photos emerged of Cruise giving the Scientology success sign, which German tabloids compared to Nazi salutes. Despite the $90 million production being directed by Bryan Singer, German critics savaged the film, calling it superficial American myth-making and historical simplification. Nevertheless, it performed surprisingly well in Germany, grossing $14 million, better than its mediocre American reception. The film's strangest legacy is how it reignited debate about the German resistance to Hitler, with historians noting the uncomfortable truth that most plotters, including Stauffenberg, weren't opposing Nazi ideology itself, but rather Hitler's military incompetence. Many had supported ethnic cleansing before turning against the Führer. Number 2. Our Hitler, 1977. Our Hitler melted projectors, induced vomiting, and remains the longest commercial film ever made. Hans-Jürgen Seiberberg's experimental 442-minute epic uses puppets, rear projection, theatrical sets, and opera to create a surreal examination of Hitler's mythological hold on German consciousness. When it premiered at Cannes, 20 viewers were treated for exhaustion, with reports of fainting and panic attacks. The film was immediately condemned by all sides. Conservatives called it degenerate art, while progressives labeled it fascist aesthetics. Its provocative suggestion that Hitler resides within German cultural DNA sparked protests outside theaters. In Berlin, neo-Nazis vandalized a cinema showing the film, while left-wing students accused Seiberberg of aestheticizing genocide and making Hitler a Wagnerian hero. Production stretched over 3 years, bankrupting Seiberberg twice. The director lived in his car for months while editing the massive project. The film uses just one soundstage, with backgrounds projected onto screens while actors perform against deliberately artificial settings. No actual Hitler footage appears. Instead, puppets and actors recreate his speeches while critiquing them simultaneously. The film's most disturbing sequence features actress Katharina Seiberberg, the director's own daughter, delivering Hitler's speeches verbatim while wearing a childlike costume, a technique intended to show how Nazi ideology infantilized Germany. Mainstream German television refused to broadcast even excerpts, while international critics like Susan Sontag called it the most extraordinary film I've ever seen. Today, It's rarely screened due to its length and technical demands, but film scholars consider it the most ambitious attempt to process German guilt through art. Number 1. Look Who's Back, 2015. Look Who's Back put Hitler on Netflix and turned him into a YouTube star, a concept so provocative that the director received death threats from both neo-Nazis and Holocaust survivors. David Venant's pitch-black comedy imagines Hitler waking up in modern Berlin, becoming a television comedian, and gradually rebuilding his political movement through social media and populist anger. What made the film truly dangerous was its guerrilla filmmaking approach. Actor Oliver Masucci, fully costumed as Hitler, was inserted into real public situations with hidden cameras recording genuine reactions. Disturbing numbers of ordinary Germans took selfies with Hitler, shared anti-Semitic opinions, and expressed nostalgia for the Third Reich. These unscripted interactions became the film's most chilling moments. The production team required security protection after receiving over 700 death threats. Several scenes had to be filmed secretly due to government concerns about public disorder. The actor playing Hitler suffered a minor breakdown after months of improvising as the dictator, telling Der Spiegel, "I was infected by his evil. I found myself waking up and thinking like him." The film grossed $21.8 million in Germany despite mixed reviews, with critics divided over whether it exposed lingering fascist sentiments or normalized Hitler through comedy. When Netflix acquired worldwide distribution rights, Jewish advocacy groups organized a petition that garnered over 200,000 signatures demanding its removal. The streamer compromised by adding educational context in certain markets. The film's final sequence, showing montages of modern European far-right rallies intercut with Hitler's enthusiastic reaction, proved prophetic as populist movements gained ground across Europe. Director Venant received the German Film Critics Award, but acknowledged, "We made a comedy that stopped being funny halfway through production when we realized how many Germans still admired him." From Riefenstahl's disturbing innovations to contemporary satires, German cinema continues wrestling with its darkest chapter in ways Hollywood never could. Which of these films crossed the line between education and exploitation? Are some stories too dangerous to tell, even in the name of preventing history's repetition? The debate rages on. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us which controversial war films from other countries deserve their own list. The responses might surprise you.